Every civilization tells of a flood. Only one of them told it first. This is who. A single drop of rain strikes the dust, and somewhere a very old story begins again. The sky over the city turns the color of iron, and the daylight drains out of the world. Thunder rolls low across the rooftops, and the people below glance up, uneasy without knowing why. On a green hillside, Noah lays down his tools beside a vast wooden ark, finished at last. 2 by 2, the animals climb the long ramp, patient shadows filing into the waiting dark. Noah gathers his family close and leads them up into the shelter of the towering hull. He sets his shoulder to the great door, and it swings shut against the coming storm. Then the rain falls in earnest, silver sheets hammering the roofs and filling the narrow streets. Rivers break their banks and spread, and small figures climb toward the high ground in the gloom. The water keeps rising, patient and endless, folding over the fields and the low stone walls. One by one, the hills go under until even the mountaintops slip beneath the gray. The last dry rooftop disappears, and the rain closes over it without a sound. Below the surface lies everything the world once was, cities and roads and gardens, all gone quiet. And the ark lifts free, riding alone on a sea that has swallowed every road and name. Out on the water, the ark drifts for days beneath a sky that never clears. Noah stands at the rail, and there is nothing to see now but water and sky. Rain drums on the hull, the last sound in a world that has gone completely silent. Now the camera lifts higher and higher until the whole flood becomes a story on a dark map. First, a light blooms over Judah, the hills where Noah watched the rain begin and the world go under. Greece flares to life, where Deucalion rides a wooden chest across a drowned and silent country. India kindles next, where Manu is pulled to safety by a great horned fish through the rising water. China glows along its rivers, where Yu the Great works to carve the floodwaters back toward the sea. The Maya lands light up, where a great water falls from the sky and swallows the world below. The Great Lakes shine, where Nanabojil drifts on a raft above an endless drowned horizon. And a quiet dot between 2 rivers, Mesopotamia, glows last and dimmest of them all. 7 lights burn on the map at once, one terrible memory shared across a scattered ancient world. Every people who ever raised a city seems to carry this same tale of rising water. The Greeks tell it, the people of India tell it, the Maya, the Chinese, the Great Lakes tell it. So a question settles over the dark map, heavier than any single flood could ever feel. Everyone remembers the day the water won, but someone, somewhere, had to tell it first. And the faintest light of all, that quiet dot between 2 rivers, is older than the rest. It waits there in the dark, a memory pressed into clay, patient and still unread. In Greece, the punishment falls as rain. West of that patient clay, in the green hills of Greece, the sky begins to lose its patience with men. A king climbs the steps of his marble hall, proud and cruel, certain no god is watching him now. High above the clouds, Zeus looks down on the smoke of the world and finds it foul. He has seen enough. His hand closes into a fist, and the order goes out across all of heaven. The clouds gather like a decision, dark and low, pressing the last light out of the valleys. Rain begins, soft at first, a whisper on the olive leaves, almost gentle in the failing light. Then it hardens, gray sheets hammering the rooftops, and the rivers wake and swell against their banks. In a quiet house, Deucalion listens to the water climbing his door and finally understands. He had been warned. He and Pyrrha work fast, sealing thick planks into a heavy wooden chest. They climb inside and pull the heavy lid down as the flood lifts the box free of the ground. The world dissolves, hills become islands, islands become memories, and then there is only endless sea. Inside the dark box, Deucalion and Pyrrha float, two heartbeats in a drowning silence. Days pass. The chest rides the gray swells, carrying the last of humankind nowhere at all. Above them, the storm finally tires. The rain thins. The clouds begin to pull back from the water. The sea begins to sink, slow as grief, uncovering the bare, wet bones of a mountain. The box grinds to rest on wet stone. Deucalion lifts the lid to a silent, empty world. He and Pyrrha step out onto the peak, alone together under a raw and freshly washed sky. Below them, the earth is empty. No smoke, no voices, no living soul, but the two of them. They wander down the mountain, calling out, and only the cold wind answers from the stripped valleys. Desperate, they seek a sign, and a strange command comes to throw their mother's bones behind them. They understand at last. The earth itself is the mother, and her bones are the stones underfoot. Deucalion gathers cold stones from the mud and casts them back over his shoulder without looking. Pyrrha does the same, not daring to look, stones tumbling and bouncing down the muddy slope. Where each stone falls, the ground stirs, and a human shape rises slowly from the softening earth. Men rise from his stones, women from hers, a whole new people climbing out of the ruined world. Deucalion and Pyrrha turn to a mountain no longer empty, and the story of humankind begins again. But this is not the only wooden box, and not the only survivor quietly warned before the rain. Far to the east, in another land, another man is already listening to a river beginning to rise. In the east, a small fish gives a warning. A man stands at the water's edge, cupping his hands, letting the cold river run through his fingers. Something small darts into his palms, a fish, no longer than a fingernail, trembling against the current. The fish begs him for protection, promising that one day it will repay the kindness in full. Manu smiles at the strange little thing and carries it home in a clay jar of water. By morning, the fish has outgrown the jar, pressing against the walls, gasping for more room. He moves it to a wide pond, but the pond shrinks around its swelling silver body. He carries it to the river, then the river feels small, the creature straining toward the sea. At the shore, he releases it, and the fish turns, its eyes suddenly ancient and knowing. It warns him. A flood is coming that will wash every living thing from the earth. "Build a boat," the fish tells him, strong and sealed, and wait for the rising water. "Gather the seeds of all living things, and when the flood comes, tie your boat to my horn." Manu works through long days, shaping timber, sealing every seam against the water he cannot yet see. The sky darkens. A single drop strikes the dust, then another, then a roar without end. The rivers swell and burst, swallowing the fields, the trees, the hills, the whole sinking world. Manu climbs aboard as the water lifts his boat and tears it loose from the land. From the churning depths, a vast shape rises, a golden horn breaking the surface like a mast. He casts his rope and binds the boat fast to the horn of the enormous fish. The fish surges forward, towing him through walls of black water and screaming wind. Days blur into nights. There is only the boat, the rope, and the endless drowned horizon. The seeds ride with him, sealed in the dark hull, the last cargo of a vanished earth. At last, a single peak pierces the flood, the highest tip of a buried mountain. The fish guides him there, and Manu ties his boat to the bare stone summit. Slowly, the waters fall, uncovering a world scrubbed empty, silent, and waiting to begin again. Manu steps down alone, the only voice left beneath a healing sky, and plants the future. Then the fish is gone, its work done, leaving only the shape of the story behind. And that shape keeps returning, a warning whispered, a boat built in secret, a single survivor. From land to land, the same tale surfaces as if one flood left many memories. A voice from the water, a rope of rescue, a lone hand replanting the drowned world. But not every people let one man float away while the rest of the world drowned. Somewhere beyond these rivers, a storyteller is about to break the pattern and answer the flood differently. Not everyone ran. Some stayed to fight. Here, along a valley of yellow rivers, the water has been rising for a lifetime, and no one runs. The people are tired, their fields are lakes, their homes sit under brown, patient water. One man walks toward the flood instead of away from it. His name is You. His father tried to stop the water with walls, piling up dams that the river tore open. And You watches the broken dams and understands. You cannot cage a river, you can only give it a road. So he takes up tools and begins to dig, carving deep channels into the swollen land. He follows the mountains, opening passages so the water learns where it is allowed to go. For 13 years, he does not stop. His hands harden, his back bends, the digging never ends. 3 times he passes his own front door, hears his child inside, and does not go in. There is no time for a home, while the whole country is drowning around him. Slowly, the water begins to move. It slides down the new channels toward the distant sea. The lakes shrink, the fields breathe. From the drying mud, dry ground rises like a promise. And on that ground, a people build a kingdom, the first dynasty born from a man who refused to float. Across a wide ocean, other gods stand over a different flood, and they made this one on purpose. They had tried to build people who would praise them, and their first people were made of wood. The wooden ones walked, they talked, they filled the world and forgot the gods entirely. No thanks rose to the sky, no prayers, only the hollow knocking of wooden feet on the earth. So the gods darkened the heavens and called down a thick, black rain of ruin. The wooden people scatter into the forest as silhouettes swallowed by water and shadow and rising trees. Their punishment is not survival, it is erasure. The gods simply wipe the first draft away. Far to the north, the flood does not recede and does not punish. It just wins. Water covers the whole world, edge to edge, and the land is only a memory beneath it. On a small raft of tangled wood floats a trickster named Nanabojo, alone above the deep. Around him swim the animals who survive, and he asks them for one impossible thing. Somewhere far below lies the old earth. Someone must dive down and bring back a piece. The loon goes first, slips beneath the surface, and comes back empty, gasping at the light. The beaver tries next, kicks down into the black, and rises with nothing in his paws. Then the muskrat, smallest of them all, takes a breath and vanishes into the water. He has gone so long the others believe him lost to the endless dark below. At last he floats up, still and limp, but clutched in his paw is a little mud. Nanabojo takes the handful of earth, breathes on it, and lays it gently on the water. And the mud grows. It spreads into shorelines and hills and forests and the ground beneath our feet. Notice what these stories do not have. No warning, no chosen family, no single ark riding above the dead. Here the flood is fought, or it is a punishment, or it is undone by a fistful of soil. The shape keeps changing, and that changing shape is the crack that splits the whole mystery open. Because if one flood story can look this different, maybe no one told it first, maybe they all did. In a London museum, the past starts speaking. In a lamplit basement beneath London, the year is 1872, and shelves sag under broken clay. These fragments came in crates from a buried palace library across the sea, cracked and numbered. For years they have waited here, unread, too shattered for any scholar to bother with. A dead king once gathered every tale his world knew and shelved them all in clay. Then his city burned. The fire baked the tablets hard and buried the stories for ages. One man bothers. George Smith, self-taught, no university behind him, only stubborn hunger. By trade, he engraves banknotes. By choice, he reads a language dead 3,000 years. Cuneiform. Wedge marks pressed in clay by hands that turned to dust before Rome was born. Tonight he bends over one tablet, its edges snapped, its middle scarred by a long fracture. His finger moves across the sign, slow, patient, the way a man walks a dark hallway. He wants the single thing every reader wants, to know how this buried story ends. He forgets the hour, he forgets the cold. There is only the clay and the flood. The signs resolve under the gaslight. A boat, a great vessel built against a coming ruin. Then water. A flood rising to swallow a city, a world, everything a man has known. And one figure warned to build, to gather life, to shut the door and wait. Smith goes still. His breath catches in the cold room. He has read this story before. He read it as a boy, in scripture, in the book of the flood and the ark. But the clay beneath his fingers is older than the holy book that taught it to him. His hands begin to shake because the tablet is not finished with him yet. Then the dead begin to speak, and Smith reads words no living voice has said aloud. The dead words rise. For 6 days and nights the wind and flood swept the land. The clerk barely breathes. When the 7th day came, the sea grew still. Then the terrible line lands. All of humankind had turned to clay. Now the birds arrive. I set free a dove, and the dove came back. He reads on, faster now. I set free a swallow, and the swallow came back. And the last bird. I set free a raven, and the raven did not return. Smith rises from the table. The discovery is too large to hold sitting down. He paces the narrow room, past the silent shelves, his heart hammering against his ribs. The boat, the flood, the mountain, the birds sent out, all of it already here. The story the world believed began with Noah was ancient when Noah was first written. He thinks of every child taught that the flood began with one ark and one man. And here, under a museum lamp, that beginning has quietly slipped 1,000 years deeper. This flood was old when the scripture was young, waiting in the ground to be found. And the tablet in his hands is only a copy, careful marks pressed over older marks. Scribes copying scribes, the story passed hand to hand across 1,000 silent years. The flood king on the tablet is only a witness, retelling a survival older than his tongue. Someone told it. Someone first. The clay points backward, past this king, past this library. Beneath the Flood King's name, another name waits in the dark, older still, and Smith means to find it. Now, at last, the first voice. George Smith bends lower over the crumbling clay, following the broken names backward, past the Flood King he already knows. The tablets here are older, the wedge marks stranger, a language breathing beneath the language he came to read. A city rises in his mind from the mud, Shurappak, oldest of the rebuilt towns on the marsh. There, a priest king kneels against his reed wall, listening as a warning breathes low through the gaps. He is a keeper of the gods' words, and the words he keeps now tell him everyone will drown. Jusudra rises and builds, lashing a great vessel together while the sky above him goes black. The dark water climbs and takes the world, and the reed towns vanish under a rising silver sheet. Rain hammers the water for days, and the whole marsh becomes one flat and shoreless sea. He alone rides the flood upward, a small shape lifted out of the drowned dark into pale light. This is the first flood hero anyone can name, the oldest face waiting behind every telling. The story leaves the marsh of Shurapak and travels north to Babylon, carried on clay from hand to hand. From Babylon, it climbs to Nineveh, copied into the great library where Smith would one day find it. And from Babylon, a second road runs west to Jerusalem, where exiled scribes hear the flood told again. In Jerusalem, the old story takes a new name, a new ark, a dove, a man called Noah. The oldest king's voice still moves inside the newer words, inherited, copied, carried, and kept alive. So the long trail has an end after all. One marsh, one king, one story fanning outward. But the road does not reach everywhere. Turn east toward the mountains and it simply stops. In China, Yu the Great does not flee the flood. He fights it year after stubborn year. He carves the mountains open and leads the water away, draining a drowned land by hand. He does not build to escape. He kneels in the mud and reshapes the land itself. No ark, no whispered warning, no borrowed king, a different water and a wholly different answer. Turn west now, across an ocean no clay tablet could ever cross, to a world alone. Nanabujo drifts on endless gray water, the old land gone, nothing left but the cold surface. A small diver plunges into the deep and returns at last with a single fistful of mud. From that grain, the earth is remade, spreading outward on the water, born new and whole. These floods owe Shurapak nothing. They rose on their own rivers in their own long night. So the answer splits cleanly in two, and honesty means holding both halves at once. Some peoples inherited the flood, handed it down the long road from one Sumerian king, and some simply met their own, the night their own rivers rose and climbed the walls. Every civilization tells it because every civilization knew the water. A few also shared one memory. Who told it first has an answer, and his name is Jusudra, kneeling on his marsh. Behind him, there is no older king, no deeper name, only the rain and the rising dark. The debate does not close with a single tidy origin. It closes with an honest, divided shape. The flood was never one story. It is the water and the human need to outlive the telling. Some stories we inherit, some we simply share. The flood was both.